Your thoughts count, your opinions important, so you gotta speak out. Don't let your chance to be heard pass by. Spare not, let me hear you loud, proud. Shout it out, real loud. Everybody wake up. Shout it out, real loud. Everybody wake up. Wake up, no time for sleeping on the issues. This is Neutral Voices, we gon' deal with the issues. Wake up. This is Neutral Voices, we gon' deal with the issues. Your voice matters, your thoughts count, your opinions important, so you gotta speak out. Don't let your chance to be heard pass by. Spare not, let me hear you loud, proud. Shout it out, real loud. Everybody wake up. Shout it out, real loud. Everybody wake up. Wake up, no time for sleeping on the issues. This is Neutral Voices, we gon' deal with the issues. Wake up. This is Neutral Voices, we gon' deal with the issues. Your voice matters, your thoughts count, your opinions important, so you gotta speak out. Don't let your chance to be heard pass by. Spare not, let me hear you loud, proud. Shout it out, real loud. Everybody wake up. Shout it out, real loud. Everybody wake up. Wake up, no time for sleeping on the issues. This is Neutral Voices, we gon' deal with the issues. Wake up.
Jamal is a boy who lives in a poor neighborhood. He has a friend named Kevin, who lives in a wealthy neighborhood. All of Jamal's neighbors are African American, and all of Kevin's neighbors are white. Because Jamal's school district is mostly funded by property taxes, his school is not very well funded. His classrooms are overcrowded, his teachers are underpaid, and he doesn't have access to high-quality tutors or extracurricular activities. Kevin's school district is also funded by property taxes, so his school is very well funded. His classrooms are never crowded, his teachers are very well paid, and he has access to high-quality tutors and lots of extracurricular activities. Kevin and Jamal live only a few streets away from each other. So how come they're growing up in such different worlds with such different opportunities for success? The answer has to do with America's history of systemic racism. To understand it better, let's look at what life was like for Kevin and Jamal's grandparents. Decades after the Civil War, many government agencies started to draw maps dividing cities into sections that were either desirable or undesirable for investment. This practice was called redlining, and it usually blocked off entire black neighborhoods from access to private and public investment. Banks and insurance companies used these maps for decades to deny black people loans and other services based purely on race. Historically speaking, owning a home and getting a college education is the easiest way for an American family to build wealth. But when Jamal's grandparents wanted to buy a house, the banks refused because they lived in a neighborhood that was redlined. So Jamal's grandparents were not able to buy a home, and because colleges could prevent them from attending through legal segregation, their options for higher education were really scarce. Kevin's grandparents, on the other hand, got a low-interest loan to buy their first house and got accepted into a handful of top universities.
Well, that have you, I was taking a whole bunch of notes. Welcome to Neutral Voices, the place where your voice matters. This is our Wednesday live segment where we laugh, inspire, vibe, and educate.
Yes, we do.
And tonight is all about education. So
Yes.
we have quite a bit to talk about, and we're talking about corruption.
Mm.
Do you know anything about that?
Man, it's
So,
deep. It's
yeah,
deep.
that video, man,
Yes.
I was just actually I was drawing. So you caught me in the middle of drawing a house. I was trying to imagine Kevin and Jamal.
Right.
And imagine them being friends and dealing with that and Kevin knowing the truth.
Right.
And then I started thinking about the conversation that's taking place in the house.
Right.
In Kevin's house versus Jamal's house.
Right.
Well,
It's a
let's
lot
be
going
real.
on with this.
This video, I mean, this video was not 60 years ago. This Jamal and Kevin are today.
Right.
That's right.
So this same video could have been played 60 years ago, maybe look a little bit different, but
Yeah.
Kevin and Jamal existed now just as they existed
The
then.
same.
Right.
So it's a modern video, but it's not a modern problem, and we're definitely going to dig into that.
Yes.
Yep.
So not much has changed.
Not much has changed.
Yes. So, looking at this video, what we talking about, the government, they got their hands in this. So
Right.
they're filthy paws. So
Right.
let's kind of look into the direction of the corruption dealing with the
Well,
government.
Well, the corruption in the United States, I mean, it's been here from the beginning. The corruption is the government. When the government is set up to profit itself and not the people. The corruption in the government, it's growing every day. There's different means and different forms of corruption. It's just that the government is not only not a political party anymore, but it's a business. And, they say the love of money is the root of all evil. So
Yeah.
where there's money, you'll find corruption. And where do you find the most money in America?
Right.
The
Right.
government.
Right.
And
And
then the
corruption,
government.
in my opinion, corruption didn't just show up. So one day, oh, look, there's corruption. Corruption was built, it was designed. It started as roots. So,
Mm-hmm.
corruption was roots. They were roots. Now corruption is the tree.
But
so,
the corruption is not a tree.
corruption is corruption is
I know,
everything.
I get
to
it.
where
Yeah,
it
I'm with you. I
started, to
understand
where it
what
It's
you're
not a
started.
saying.
tree. It's
That's
the
right. It is a
corruption.
tree. Okay.
It's a
corruption
whole.
It's a whole tree.
It's a whole
Well,
tree.
but listen,
that's,
so-
that's where I was going.
Besides the tree, the truth is, so when we start thinking about the Constitution, the
That-
Constitution was written so that we wouldn't have corruption. Is that
no,
right?
no.
The Constitution is a corrupt.
Okay, go
It's a
ahead.
corrupt
It's a corrupt.
document.
It's
I'm
a
so
corrupt
glad you
document.
went there.
It's a
The
corrupt
document
document.
itself is correct. The writing of the Constitution is corrupt.
I wrote a
Okay,
couple
let's-
things just
I was
super
gonna say, let's
briefly. I was hoping that
open-
somebody would bring
Okay,
up
let's open
Go
that
ahead,
up
go
to
the
ahead.
a little
Constitution.
bit.
So just we the people. Does that sound weird? First of all, because is that true already? We the people. Nothing in this has to do with we for one.
The people.
So secondly, form a perfect union,
Yeah.
which we have never done as a nation from the get-go. Establish justice. JUSTICE.
at her
Establish
being studious.
justice.
She being studious today.
Provide common defense. I don't really think that's happening now, and promote general warfare. So those things stuck out to me that long ago because that's how we are supposed to, according to this document, be living as a nation.
Well,
That's right.
let me help y'all to those
Okay,
that
come on.
that really don't grasp the Constitution. I suggest every American read the Constitution. You will understand how corrupt it is. First of all, we the people. It was written for we the people at the time. The we the people at the time was the rich, wealthy white landowners. Those were the people it was written for. So it was written for the people that it was written for. And if you read in it, women nor black people were mentioned in it, but women were not really mentioned in the Constitution until the amendments came about, because women couldn't own land at the time and different things like that. But black people are mentioned as 3/5 less than cattle. And that's a black man. They didn't even count the black woman. So it is set up, and don't get me wrong, that's why I said it's a corrupt document, because it is set up for the people that it's talking about. We the people, and look at it. And those are still the people.
But we,
that
the
are
people they were
empowered.
talking about, it shouldn't have been just them then, and it shouldn't be just them now.
and
If
what-
we could throw everything else away and get
Well,
rid of everything
well,
else and
just-
do
you're
all
missing
this,
the
then why
concept.
can't we
You're missing
throw
concept.
the Constitution in the
people,
trash?
We the people did not count.
No,
the
I get
people
that.
wrote it, and it's still in that. It's the
Clearly.
people. So
Clearly,
we
but
weren't people.
But what I'm saying is today,
Today,
if you want equality,
you got to scrap the
Yeah,
Constitution.
you gotta
that's what I'm
start- you
saying.
gotta
Why
start the
can't we get rid
Constitution
of the
all over.
Constitution if we
I
can
mean-
get rid of everything else?
Okay.
You will have to.
I know y'all excited, but listen, I just want to remind everybody we're talking about corruption,
Right.
and it
Yeah.
causes this type of
Yeah.
conversation. But but what I'm saying is, wasn't there a clause in the Constitution that kind of prohibits government officials from accepting bribes and gifts and things like that from foreigners?
That's later. in
And
the
I'm saying,
Constitution.
and then with that particular clause, because those are some of the things. There's like 3 different lawsuits against Trump right now where he violated those types of
yes,
things.
yes.
So we'll dig into that a little
Yes,
bit
we
more.
will.
And because tomorrow night we're going to continue
Yeah,
our
yeah.
conversation with.
But
the
in
voice of
simple,
the people.
answering your question, in governmental corruption,
Mhm.
it started I can't say when it was started because I didn't pinpoint it. But you mentioned the Constitution. I can say that was a start of the corruption because there were other people in this land at the time that were not favored. So it's a corrupt document because it's biased and it didn't have everybody listed or recognized in there.
Now that's a fact.
That's a fact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So as far as the United States government, is there anything else you want to touch on?
Well,
with that before we...
The United States government is a business.
Mhm.
I mean, think about it. And we're going to touch on a lot of it, but I want to tell you, a lot of the public officials and government officials are elected by corporations. I mean, whatever the agenda that's being pushed, whatever the medium is that they want
Yes.
everybody to get across, that's what the election and that's what it is. So if I'm a lobbyist, and that's a reason why a lot of we still don't have power because we don't have the influence or the money to go in the halls of the Capitol building and all that and flash our money. But whatever the high dollar issue is at the time, that is what it's going to be. Barack Obama, great man, but you can question some of it. And I know people don't like to hear this, but you can question some of his politics. One of his things that got him a lot of money was energy efficiency. So think about that's where all they were pushing about the electric cars, the gas emissions.
Right.
They were doing
Yeah.
all.
Well, I mean,
and-
they all know what to say.
yeah, and that's what
during
I'm
the
saying.
election
So
Right.
to get
that's what
elected.
got him, and he fulfilled that because that was the issue that was being pushed.
Right.
So it's a business.
Okay, now before we go too deep into that and the government and the whole corruption thing, let's define corruption. So break it down for us, Jill, so we can understand what
The
corruption
actual
is.
definition of corruption, simply put, although not simple at all, dishonest or fraudulent conduct by those in power, typically involving bribery, dishonest behavior, or misuse of public power. Power is in there twice.
That sounds like my job. No, I'm just kidding. Did I
But,
say that?
but let me tell you one word that is also in there that you say power, and that's where the power comes from. Bribery. How do you bribe somebody?
Yeah.
hmm
We're
Oh,
gonna talk about that later. But
Oh,
Yeah,
how you
okay.
bribe-
Because
yeah.
I was on hit. I hit that one.
hit it. How you bribe
Oh
somebody?
man, there's so
It's
many.
simple. Hey, I'm finna have a $500 dinner in your honor. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm finna invite everybody. I'm finna invite 2,000 people and
At
charge them
$500 a plate?
$500 a plate, and you get the money. But all I need you to do is when this come on the table.
Okay, we might need you to revisit. that. We might want to talk about
Yes,
that a little
yes,
bit
yes,
more.
yes. It's gonna get deeper here.
Mhm.
It's gonna get deeper here.
Okay.
Man, corruption is it's our government,
Man, corruption is all over the place.
and we walk in it every day,
Yes.
and we don't know it
Every day.
Every day.
Okay, would you say the United States is any different than any other country? I'm saying, as far
No.
as, and so it's not new.
No, it's not.
There's
new.
so many things, and,
It's a
when you start
company.
thinking about corruption, I mean, it's almost easier to say, where does it not exist? Where is it?
And I can't think
It's
of a place that
everywhere.
it's not.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yep.
saying. So it's almost easier to look at where it does not exist. So good for us that right about now they are coming up with the anti-corruption laws, and so
Anti-corruption laws.
anti-corruption committees they're trying to pass that act. So yeah.
So we're gonna ask the people that's the perpetrators to police it.
Yeah.
I was just getting ready to say.
Yeah.
I was
We
just
finna-
getting ready
we
to say,
finna-
but that's
We're finna ask the corrupt to
yeah,
watch the
have-
corrupt.
I was gonna say letting the fox guard the hen house.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So- But I mean, make them feel like they're doing something.
Right.
But yeah, so just so that we can keep moving, I want to go into the law enforcement. Do we have comments or something? We have a lot going on here in the
Yeah.
studio. It's always obvious. When
Yeah,
we're
we stay busy.
distracted.
That happens when you
We
lie.
looking around. and
That happens when
everybody-
you lie.
right.
That happens
I-
when you
let
lie.
me let me just do this right now while everybody figure themselves out and where they going from here. This is Neutral Voices, and this is our Wednesday Live, and we're having a good conversation about corruption.
Yes.
So, of course, we can talk about George Floyd,
Uh-huh.
and we're gonna get into law enforcement.
Yeah.
And that goes down a slippery slope. That just keeps going.
Man.
So, when you think, it's almost like think about Rodney King.
Yes.
Now go,
Oh.
take it. I was gonna say
Are you
go
old enough to remember
go back
Rodney King?
further. go back further because
You
you know
looking-
this
you looking at
happened
me.
I
before
thought he was
that.
asking you.
Yeah,
I'm
even
just
before
saying,
that.
this happened way before that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then so something happened that we start paying attention, but the corruption is
The
been there
The
all the
corruption,
time.
the corruption in the law enforcement is all over. It's deep. I mean, it goes to the point where, you know, police are planting evidence and getting caught and
Yeah, that's
acting
the
like
part.
Mm-hmm.
and acting like, oh, I didn't do that. Well, you got your police camera on. You forgot you got a camera on you.
Yes.
That showing that you putting drugs or you trying to turn your camera off and try to hide what you didn't did. But when it comes to the forefront,
Mhm.
oh, well, what about my family? Well, what about the family you just destroyed?
Right,
Mhm.
right.
You know, even it goes as far as a lot of the police chiefs are so corrupt. I mean, just think about it. In the last few shootings,
Mhm.
police chiefs has retired,
Resigned.
resigned.
Mhm.
Yes.
Just throw in the towel.
Yeah, I quit. I don't know.
It's-
I don't want them
I don't wanna deal with
investigating me.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Because I mean, you know how corrupt they are.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And to go with that, there was a town in Alabama and one in Florida where the whole police departments were disbanded. In
Yeah.
Alabama, they had planted over or had sent over 1,000 black men to prison on faulty evidence. Same
Mhm.
thing that happened in Florida. The police chief was caught on recording saying that if he's black, he's a suspect. Bring him in. And I mean, I don't remember the towns, but you can Google them. But there's two towns, one in Alabama and one in Florida. But Alabama is notorious for police corruption, especially against black people. Have anybody seen the movie Just Mercy?
Yes.
Just Mercy.
Yes.
Now, it was about
Michael B.
yes,
Okay.
it was about the main character, which Jamie Foxx played.
Mm-hmm.
But that was really not the important story of the movie.
Yeah.
O'Shea Jackson played another character, and his name was Anthony Ray Hinton. Anthony Ray Hinton was arrested for killing a white man. But when the police chief came and arrested him, he said, I don't care if you shot him or not. I'm going to guarantee that you're convicted. He said, I'm going to make sure you're convicted because, one, a white man was killed. Two, you're going to have a white judge. Three, you're going to have a white
jury.
prosecutor.
Mhm.
And four, you're going to have a all white jury.
Wow.
He said, you're gonna go to jail for this. You're gonna go to prison for this. You're gonna die for this. They told him this as he was being arrested.
And they meant every single word of it.
Yeah, this man
Every-
spent 30 years on death row, innocent. Didn't commit no crime, not one.
And what bothers me about this, too, with the corruption of the law enforcement and police department, is it is done so blatantly. It's not done amongst themselves in a coffee shop quietly. Years ago, with the business that I'm in, I watched several officers come who were local officers, and they were there for a drug bust. There had just happened to be a shooting a couple nights prior in the southeast side of Fort Wayne. They said amongst each other there was 3 white officers and a black officer, and they said in front of me, because apparently they were comfortable enough to speak like that in front of me because I am white,
Mm-hmm.
they said, oh, it's not a big deal. If we just leave them alone, they'll just start killing each other off.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked over, and they said it just as it
Mm.
was effortless.
Mm-hmm. Part of the
So
plan.
comfortable. I mean,
Part
not
of the
even, it's
plan.
so blatant because there's no accountability for those words or actions per se.
Right.
Well, I mean, they don't hold the cop. Well, let me take this back. They starting to hold police accountable. And my biggest thing is, in order to stop corruption in the law enforcement, take the immunity off of them.
Well, and I don't just think it's with that. I know a police officer. He was from Fort Wayne, but he got caught up in Indianapolis. There were 28 police officers. They were actually drug dealers, and they would go in and they would
The
raid
police were the
the
drug dealers.
police. They would go in and raid drug dealers, and they would
keep the drugs and the
right,
money.
keep the drugs and the money
And the guns.
and the guns. And it was 28 of them. But how they got caught is one of the drug dealers was smart, and I got to give it to him. He converted all his money into money orders and tore off the stubs. So one of the officers kept some of the money orders and started spending the money orders. And he took it to court, and he was like, yo, they got my stuff because I got all the stubs. Trace these money orders.
Mm. Wow.
So, I mean, it's all about money. I mean, I think that is we can say the root of corruption. You know,
And
It's
then,
money.
and then you know what you talking about that, and then think about how many movies. Well, I know I've seen personally about corrupt cops.
Cops.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, all the time.
Right.
And then one of the best was with Denzel.
Training day.
Okay,
I'ma
with
put
Training Day.
cases on
I-
all
Y'all
I
be
know
playing
it's-
basketball in
that's
Pelican Bay.
But and so it's one thing, you know, that corruption, and it just kind of spills over, and so within the department, the police were against each
Right.
other.
It has
Yeah.
to be
So,
inherent.
You
It
know,
has
so
to
when we
be.
just think about corruption, so you know, I just want to kind of take it back just a little bit, not to go back to the video, but you know, I did say I was thinking about Kevin and Jamal, and one of the things I was thinking about that kind of spills over into our communities right now today, because like we said, that video is
Mhm.
relevant now.
Right.
It was relevant then,
Mhm.
but redlining.
Mhm.
You know, and so to me, I mean, I don't care what it's about. When you're trying to get a loan, buying a car, buying a house, redlining is there.
Right.
Your education, as far as trying to decide what school, you know. So, you know, just for a brief second, I know that was just one of the little things that video was talking about, but you know, that just kind of sticks out as we move forward in our conversation,
And-
talking
and-
about racism
Go ahead,
and,
Jill.
and redlining.
You know, and how redlining, when redlining started, they literally did draw like the video showed. And the funny thing is, not funny, places that were redlined way back in the 1930s are still places today that are experiencing
Mhm.
poverty. In other words, they knew exactly back then, all of this is intentional. Somebody sat down and they had a plan. Redlining was part of the plan, and redlining has not went away. It still happens today. In fact, 3 out of every 4 neighborhoods redlined 90 years ago are still moderate to low income.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Right.
And you know what? And people don't know this, but you can get a really low interest rate buying a house if you decide to go way
Mhm.
out,
Right.
way out there.
Right.
And a lot of times they know
We're
we are
not going.
getting ready
Right.
to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
No, we're not going.
And it
Well,
works.
There's a lot of people are starting to move out.
I mean, not this far. I'm talking about way out there, past county line road,
Well, I mean-
et cetera, et cetera. My point is, they know a lot of times we're not going to do
move,
certain
yeah.
things.
Right. Right.
You know, and so like I was sharing the story as far as Walmart, a lot of times when people are trying to get their products in Walmart, they may open a door for you or seemingly open a door, but once you get inside,
It's something
like-
totally different.
like here 911, once they got inside Walmart, they the buyer, their particular buyer, all of a sudden vanished. That the buyer they thought was going to walk them through the entire process
Yeah.
of how things was going to go. You'll have to look that up. But the buyer disappeared. All of a sudden, they were left with all of these paperwork. The man said, like, some of the stuff they needed to fill out had 3,000 lines on it. You was like, what? You know, they didn't know
Yeah.
what to do. Next thing you know, stuff start falling apart.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so the door may open for you and make you think you're welcome,
Yeah.
but then there's these traps that's
Corrupt
laid out
practices.
for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Right.
That's corruption that is going to cause you to spiral down and take a loss and
And
go
when-
back where you came from.
But I want you to put a pin in redlining because it's not only about finances right now. We're going to talk about this a little later, but I want you to remember redlining
Mhm.
because it's a later in the conversation where redlining is most effective today. And it's still corrupt. You're right in what you stated, Jill, about 3 out of 4 neighborhoods are still, but they're getting different reasons for redlining now. And it was in the video, but we're gonna talk about it a little later too. So
Well, and just to touch on the housing market a little bit, I had my real estate license. I sold real estate, and I will tell you, this was 15 years ago, and clients would come to me from out of town. I would get referrals. They would literally say to me that they had talked to other realtors who had told them to steer away from certain parts of town. So me being in the business, and any other person with common sense knows that is not something that you do, but it is something that is done. So you've got people coming to a place they're not familiar with. They're going to listen to what their realtor says because they trust them. That's why they're with them. So if a realtor says, don't go here, murders happen over here, you're not going to go there. And then you're going to tell your friends. So it still happens today.
That's right.
Right.
And there's a sneaky way to do it because as the realtor, you can just show them all the properties
Absolutely.
in a different area.
Absolutely.
Period. Just,
Yeah.
you know. So,
we'll talk about that tomorrow. I got information on
okay.
housing practices. That's recent and relevant.
Okay. Yep. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to talk. I know we have a video but I want to talk about the media a little bit.
Right.
So the media influences our decisions on a lot of things.
Right.
And so when it comes to corruption, I'll say off the top, the corruption starts when the owner of the media company controls what is shown on the
Yes.
television, how many times, and et cetera,
Right.
what time of night, because sometimes I'm thinking, now, why would they show that this late?
Right.
And certain things like that. So it's the same with everything else, commercials, etc. The people, that's corruption right there. When they buy the company or own the company, and then they get to control what's being said and
Right,
how
and
it's being said.
I feel like the media is at the very top as far as the leadership role in corruption, because you brought something up earlier. You said, with the law enforcement and the corruption, it's always been here, but now we're paying attention to it. And the thing is it has always been here. But we are paying attention to it because it is in our face. George Floyd, would that have whole trial happened? Would anybody have been held accountable if somebody told you it happened and you didn't see it happen? The answer is no.
No.
It is only because
That young
things are
lady reported it.
publicized and are put in our faces, just like when the
I gotta
shootings
disagree
happen
with
in,
that
in Fort
I gotta
Wayne.
disagree with
No,
that.
it is
I
so
wanna
much
hear
more
how you gonna
powerful.
disagree.
People are visual.
I gotta disagree.
People are visual.
Yeah, I gotta disagree.
What do you disagree
Go ahead,
with?
Clarence.
What part?
Rodney King was videotaped.
So was.
109.
Oh, you saying
109 licks by billy clubs. What happened?
They was all
It-
acquitted.
It was
And
on the
everybody
news
seen it.
every
Every
day.
night, yes.
Yeah, I still don't
Now-
understand that.
Yeah, but see what the difference is, and you're partially right, Jill. What the difference is where we are
Partially?
now. Yeah, where we are now. The video is the evidence, and that's where people in the media is playing that. It was played, and it was a difference between George Floyd and Rodney King. George Floyd, it was indisputable, and there were people, and the arguments and everything. Rodney King was the same thing, but it was the narrative in which
They paint.
they played it. Rodney King, they claimed that they went on a 20, 30 miles high-speed chase. He was irate. He was all of this. So they played the narrative.
Yeah.
George Floyd, they tried to do the same thing, but, America, everybody
smart
has
for
a
that.
yeah,
They
everybody.
had the
everything is
millennials out
different.
there
Yes.
watching and
So,
filming.
It was the media and the corrupt narratives of how they do it. But Rodney King videotape, it's indisputable. Took 109 licks.
Yeah.
Well, and we talked the other night. We actually, quoted statistics about what happened to teenagers or even adults in the Black community that have gotten PTSD or anxiety from the video itself. So, I will always think that the media puts things in our faces, and a lot of times we don't hear about those things. The things we hear about are the things we choose to focus on because some people, that's
Well-
all that they watch.
Well, they control the narrative, like you said. They control the narrative. So if I put a bunch of dancing penguins in front of the TV and say they're the best thing as fried chicken, and they continue to do it,
How you gonna compare penguins and chickens?
but I'm just saying it's just what it is. I'm controlling the
You
narrative.
was offended about the chicken?
Yeah,
I
sure.
got you.
Yeah,
But
they
also,
controlling the narrative. So if I could control the narrative, I could control what's going on.
and control everything.
and
Yes.
again, we're talking about corruption,
games.
correct?
Yes.
Think about it. It's all in financial gain.
Yeah.
What is the profit of them telling what story? What is the profit or what do they benefit from running certain stories at certain times? There's advertisers. Difference between Rodney King, he didn't have Nike and a Black Lives Matters and all
No,
of that
he didn't.
investing, at the time. It's the narrative. So what is the gain in which they, state? And if you break it down, again, bribery or financial gain is the root of most in all corruption. I can say that. So what are they gaining? What is the profit? What is their bottom line going to look like by changing the narrative now?
And so this boils down to what systemic racism.
Yes.
When we start looking at
Yeah.
all of this, I think we have a video that we would like to take a peek at if we have it ready, guys. This is Neutral Voices. Don't forget to click like and share and subscribe to our YouTube page. Watch this video with us.
Handful of top universities, which traditionally only accepted white students. This opened up a wealth of opportunities that they were able to pass on to their kids and grandkids. Even as late as the 1980s, an investigation into the Atlanta real estate market showed that banks were more willing to lend to low-income white families than to middle or upper-income African American families. As a result, today, for every $100 of wealth held by a white family, black families have $5.04. A 2017 study confirms that redlining is still affecting home values in major cities like Chicago today. This explains how Kevin and Jamal inherited vastly different circumstances. Unfortunately, the story doesn't end there. A big part of systemic racism is implicit bias. These are prejudices in society that people are not aware that they have. Let's go back to Kevin and Jamal. Against all odds, Jamal manages to be the only student from his high school to get accepted into a great university, the same one that Kevin and his high school friends are attending. But after Kevin and Jamal both graduate, Jamal notices that his resume isn't drawing as much interest as Kevin's, even though they graduated from the same program with the exact same GPA. Unfortunately for Jamal, studies show that resumes with white-sounding names get twice as many callbacks as identical resumes with black-sounding names. Implicit bias is one of the reasons why the black unemployment rate is twice the rate of white unemployment, even among college graduates today. You can see evidence of systemic racism in every area of life. The disparities in family wealth, incarceration rates, political representation, and education are all examples of systemic racism. Unfortunately, the biggest challenge with systemic racism is that there's no single person or entity responsible for it, which makes it very hard to solve. So what can you do? The first thing you can do is work towards becoming more aware of your own implicit biases. What are some prejudices that you might hold that you're not aware of? Second, let's acknowledge that the consequences of slavery and Jim Crow laws are still affecting access to opportunity today. As a result, we should support systemic changes that create more equal opportunities for everyone. Increasing public school funding and making it independent from property taxes would be a great start, so that poor and wealthy districts can receive equal access to resources. Systemic problems require systemic solutions. Luckily, we're all part of the system, which means that we all have a role to play in making it better. Peace. As a result, we should support systemic changes.
All right. That has a lot of things in it. And,
I know.
and one of the things that it got to it, and that's why I said put a pin in redlining. Redlining not only is a financial thing, it's to keep people in poverty, but in today's, if you look at the elections now, they use redlining and gerrymandering to change votes in the election results. That's where it is now. The main thing, it's a political tool. It's not just a financial tool. And that's why I said put a pin in it, because we're going to hit on it. It's a political tool now. And they gerrymander, which means they draw different districts and everything up to be able to control political outcomes of different.
Kind of like Atlanta.
Yes.
What they're talking about
Yes.
doing in Atlanta.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. And when they were talking about slavery and everything, I mean, how do we stop it? That's where they ask, how do we stop
How
it?
do we stop the systemic?
We got to get rid of the system. And the system is the Constitution. I mean,
We gotta
let's
get rid
look
of
at
that.
it. We got to get rid of the system.
You know, and a lot of times we
What?
say racism, but I really think it's like anti-black racism.
No.
Like there's a difference. There's racism,
Mhm.
but then there's anti-black
Yes. it seems a
racism. I
difference.
mean, we just have to keep it 100
Okay.
because a lot of times, you know, other people can slip through the radar,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're black, it changes the game.
I'm
So,
changing the whole thing.
Yeah.
We got a couple of comments we hit, then we can move on.
The difference is George died. If there wasn't a death, you would have had practically the same result. True or false?
I say both. And this is why I say both. Yes, the death amplified it, but I don't think we would have got a different result because of the time that it happened. It was not in this era. It was not in this time. So I think for the time frame that it happened, it would have been the same result had it been a death.
I think the time frame is huge. That's the point that I was trying to go with. Is so many more people saw. So when people see, they get up and they get active. There were more protests. It was just a completely different world.
I disagree. I
No.
think everybody
Mm-mm.
saw.
Everybody
I
saw.
think,
No, they-
I think the difference is it was live.
How's
was
the first
live.
time you heard about it? Did one of your family members call you, or did you see it on Facebook?
Which one y'all talking about?
The
George
recent,
Floyd?
George
George.
Floyd.
Yes, correct,
but
correct.
I actually saw it in the news.
So
yeah.
you saw it somewhere.
That's how I
Hold
saw
on.
Rodney King.
Rodney King was
We
in
got
the news
another one.
out the gate.
are people being programmed by the media to think a certain way?
100%.
Yes.
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 Yes,
Yes.
that's
That's why it's called TV
Mhm.
programs.
But
Television.
now,
They-
but I agree with that. But now I believe they're being programmed by social media too, because if a lot of people, if you miss the news,
Mhm.
yeah. You
they
can
go to
catching it
face-
somewhere
Yeah.
else
Yes.
or at work, etc., and they're being programmed now
yeah.
by
Right.
social media and some of all of the.
And I don't think they're
videos.
being programmed to think a certain way. I think they're being programmed to not think at all. I think they're
For
being programmed
themselves.
to watch and see whatever that narrative is that's coming out because that's what they're going to adapt.
I can agree with that.
Zero
I can
critical
agree with
thinking needed, zero critical thinking used.
And you know what, Jill, and to go with that, really is people's responsibility to
Yes.
inspect
Absolutely.
and to go through, analyze, and dissect the
But why-
media
but why?
and information.
I mean, my question is, why would I do that? Why, like she said, if I get somebody to think for me,
Absolutely,
And
but
that's
so
the
what-
problem.
So,
That's the problem.
problem.
Human accountability.
Yeah.
You can't seriously think that everything that the TV is going to feed you is going to, is going to take care of the
Mhm.
hunger that you have to change the world.
well,
It is
this
human.
this is the funniest thing during Trump administration. Fox News. A lot of people, whatever Fox News said
Mhm. They
about
believe it.
Trump was the honest to God truth.
Yep.
It was
Yep.
nothing they couldn't say anything.
Yeah, you're
but,
right.
and you're right, but
And
think
they
about
live
how
by
he
it.
used social media.
Exactly.
yes.
So I mean, he used that, and then
Every
anything
day.
Right.
CNN
NBC.
said was wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's false
Or-
news.
and the fake
Mhm.
news.
Yeah,
Fake news.
Everybody
Yeah.
else was fake news except for Fox.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you just think about it. That's the way that I think he bought Fox News and said, "Hey, you run this like I want you, now I slide you, this, that, and the other."
And that's what I was talking about. Who controls the
Mm.
narrative?
Right.
Is the
Yes.
person
Right.
that owns the media.
Yeah.
Power.
So,
Power.
so
Power.
okay, so real quick, I want to do some wordplay right now
right.
because we understand corruption and the root of corruption and how long it's been here, and etc. But
Right.
so I just want to kind of go through some words, and then you just hit me with
Mhm.
the definition or whatever you want to talk about in regards to. So you mentioned bribery, and I told you I was going to want you to revisit that. So
Bribery.
what is bribery?
Basically, bribery is this. You in power. Like I said, I'm finna do a dinner, 2,000 people, $500 a plate. I need you to run on my agenda, what I need you to do. And every time you need something, we gonna run a $500 plate. And you gonna get the money. All I need you
What's
to
in
do
it
is
for you?
Yeah.
all I need you to do is, hey, I need nothing but blue pins laid around across the world.
Yes.
That's it. I mean, it's just that simple.
It's just that simple.
Okay.
And they continuously do it.
Okay.
And the lobbyists just stay in the, hey, Clarence, I know you big on gun control. How about I slide you a $10,000 plate,
Mhm.
dinner, and you don't vote,
Mm-hmm.
or you forget to come to work that day.
Yeah.
And the truth is, bribery is everywhere.
Bribery's
Everywhere.
You know something?
Because
It's a movie Eddie Murphy played in when he ran for Congress.
Distinguished gentleman.
Yeah, Distinguished Gentleman. That's the perfect movie to describe bribery.
yes, I think we have another
Comment.
comment or something up here. I can't
Ooh.
see.
This comment is from James Scott, who says, "What needs to happen for Black America to change their own narrative?"
Stick together, work together. It's just that simple.
That
Well,
NBA
before
was-
they, and I agree with
That's
that 100%.
just
But they
that
need to
simple.
be educated
Yeah, they
because a
need
lot
to-
of times, we just really don't know what the Constitution even say. We don't know
Yeah.
what's really going on, and so we just trust the media. So we need to be first informed, educated, and then we have to
stick together
Yeah.
and work together.
You got to watch Neutral Voices.
and be consistent.
Yes.
Be consistent.
Got to watch Neutral Voices. Click,
Right.
like, and share.
And and be consistent in that too. But I'm saying we talk about getting together, we come together, but then
We
we
gotta
fall
stay
apart.
together. We gotta stay
have
together.
to be consistent.
Yeah.
Right now, I have to say, no matter how people feel about it, but BLM is hanging in there, and you
Yes.
see commercials, and they
Right,
like
right,
staying
right,
in
right.
your face. Black
But
Lives Matter.
not only with
period.
BLM, I think, what is it called? It's a Black news channel. We need to start having our own media. We need to start reporting
Mhm.
as it affects us and stop
And that's
listening
what
to
I-
everybody. I
Absolutely.
forgot what the Black news channel is, but we need things like that. We need our We need our voices, our stories to be told by our people,
Neutral
and
voices.
told how it affects our people. So I think we need to have
Absolutely.
some
That's
power, and we have to have a voice in the narrative.
Yes. Okay, so back to wordplay. What about crowism? Anybody
I
heard
got you on
that
one.
word?
I got you on that one.
Okay,
Now-
crowism.
Now, and people, and before I go, I think you gave it to somebody else, but I'm gonna have to do these two together because I look at them
Okay.
together because they go side by side.
All right.
Crowism and nepotism. I'm gonna tell you why. Crowism is that Eric, my boy, wherever I roll, Eric gonna roll.
Gotcha.
I got you.
We rolling.
We gonna roll. We gonna roll. So what
Okay.
I got when I come up, Eric coming up with me. That's my dog. We rolling together. I'm getting in office. I'm gonna find Eric something to do in office. That's crowism. That's my crony. That's my homie. That's the person that I hang with. And he don't have to have experience. I'm just giving him the position because that's my
Because
guy.
I'm his hype man.
He related to you.
Yes, and that's what
Married
nepotism.
to your
yes,
sister.
That's where
Yeah.
nepotism come in as well. It's the same thing. Like
Uh-huh.
Donald Trump, his daughter had no education or no security. She had high level security clearances that other people could
Right.
not get.
Yeah.
She was sitting in committee meetings that she should not have been in as a civilian. But nepotism, he put her in a position. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, he put him in a position. All his boys, his business partners, they got cabinet positions. So that's nepotism and that's crowism.
You think that's corruption?
Oh, to the fullest extent.
I was
Man.
gonna say sometimes you don't really
Hey.
look at it and think about it like
I'm
that.
gonna give y'all, and I can't just put Donald Trump. Y'all remember Kwame?
Oh, Kwame, you done brought him up.
Y'all remember Kwame?
Mhm,
That's
mhm.
why he went to jail. Why shouldn't Trump go to jail? Kwame put his dad in a position, his uncle in a position, his best friend, father in a position.
Everybody's going to have a position.
Kwame did that in Detroit. It's the
Okay.
same thing. So that's where cronism and nepotism come in together.
Right. Well, what about economics of corruption?
Economics of corruption deals with the simple misuse of public power for private benefit. So I mean that could affect
Ooh,
anything
that's-
from our daily lives, the law enforcement, finances,
Man.
real estate.
You gotta stay out of my.
Oh man,
job.
man, that's heavy because think about it. Economic corruption. If
Mhm.
we can control, I mean, the economy and the money, I mean, that's the media. That's what we eat.
It's all of
That's
it.
what we breathe. That's why this gas thing that's going on.
It's the stimulus.
The stimulus.
I'm just saying,
Well, see,
some people
here's
in
the oth-
power and they calling their family, telling them how to get this money, what you need
PPP
to
loans?
do,
Right.
and etc. And so that's another way
Yeah.
to look at that.
And
See how you can
economics.
get caught up in corruption and not really realize it.
Yes, but some
I'm
of us
saying-
know. We go in there. We go in there head
You
first.
give people the benefit of the
Let's
doubt.
go.
We marching right
seriously,
in.
the truth is sometimes you can get caught up in it and not really thinking about it being corruption. And so you take that trip and that company paid for it. And then now you find yourself taking another trip because it seems like that was easy. No
Right.
one knows. And so that happens. And this is one thing that I know for a fact. I know for a fact a lot of times nonprofits get caught up
Mhm.
in corruption because they're doing things with the money and they
Mhm.
find out later,
Yeah.
you don't get to do that.
Yeah.
You
And I
know?
like the words too that we're talking about because a lot of times when you're talking about croism or nepotism, bribery leads to
Mhm.
that. You know, people
Mhm.
get women, for example, get in positions they shouldn't be in because of a
Uh-oh.
bribery situation. So that happens in
That's a
positions
whole-
of higher
That's a
power,
whole
or that
nother-
happens at the doctor's office with the assistant.
That's
So
right.
a lot of these things that start out small turn into something and can
And,
snowball.
and that's
so
what I'm saying. So sometimes I hear
I
what
didn't think
Clarence
about
saying,
that
but
one,
I'm saying
Jill.
sometimes you're
Uh,
innocent.
Yeah.
I
and then
thought about
boom,
it, but
you
I
end
just
up
want to
in
be
some-
quiet about
Now,
it.
when
that's
we
true.
say that, what about it, when you start thinking about the election and then all this craziness about the fraud connected to this particular election?
the whole system needs
Oh,
thrown in the
man.
trash.
Man. First of all, we need to prosecute those people that stormed the Capitol on December the 6th.
yeah.
We need to that's corruption right
That's
there.
That-
major
All them
Yeah.
people walked away from that, from treason. These people walked away from that.
Yeah.
But voter and election fraud has only been, I mean, it's always been talked about, but as Jill said, it's the time and place. And this time and place, from Obama to Trump to Biden, we've heard about it mostly, election fraud. Trump said that, Obama was did it because they the thing with gerrymandering. They changed some of the districts and all of this, but voter and election fraud is deeper than that. As E said, that's me dropping money into your political campaign. But you know, I pay more than what's in your political campaign. So when you're done campaigning, where does that money go? It doesn't go back to the funder.
No, it
Right.
goes in the
I
pocket.
get I
Go
get
in the pocket.
Right.
So,
the residue.
Remember, Doc V, you said if I vote for you, if I do this, you know, and I gave you this money, you would do this for me. Where did my money go?
Now you gonna
Okay,
owe me
yeah,
this.
you owe me one. You owe me
Okay,
one,
yeah.
and that's what happens, you know, with the lobbyists and all of that.
Mhm.
They go out and you know these campaign ads and all this other stuff. And think about it, where do they get most of this dirt?
And I believe a lot of
From
that,
hanging around
a
each
lot of
other.
that fraud stuff is going on right now. The reason Trump, because when he was in office, you just kept hearing about him getting arrested and going to jail, and this gonna happen. And then think about it, kind of like R. Kelly. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
I'm
That's
just
a
saying,
segue and a
I'm just
half,
saying.
Doc V.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. You know how you say somebody paying people off.
Yeah, you paying
keep
people
getting
off,
out
yeah.
of this. So
Absolutely.
that happens
Right.
sometimes. I did have a couple more words I wanted to get to. But we do have Voice of the People tomorrow,
Yes.
and I'm going to sing those
Yes.
words.
Yes.
So we're going to continue with a little wordplay tomorrow
Yes, yes.
surrounding corruption. But right now,
And yeah, I'm gonna break it down about
You
the
gonna break
police.
it down?
About the police.
oh, that's going to be
The whole
good.
breakdown. We're
The
looking
whole
forward to
breakdown
that.
on the
You gonna
popo.
spin on your head?
Okay.
Yeah. The
All
popo.
right, and
We
we're
gonna-
going to talk a
at the
little
popo.
bit more about corruption tomorrow for
Yeah.
the Voice of the People. But right now, I want to hear from Jill.
We live in a world that from the beginning was filled with corruption, where mankind himself made up plans to cause destruction, where at times peace seems to only be found in a sign, where racism and hate have not diminished, not even with time. With all their intentions to keep us apart, segregated we stay, the perfect plan. Because imagine a nation so powerful if instead of being on opposing sides, we stood together hand in hand. From shackles to shackles, the chains, they remain. Daily adding to the lists of those who drown in oppression, because we are still not viewed as the same. We still aim to search for the good in all that we see, but know the struggles some still face, those who still cannot breathe. We still wait for the part that says, and liberty and justice for all. We know that united we stand, and divided we fall. There is work to be done, solutions to be found, voices to be heard. We need those to stand up who are used to sitting down. Mankind, it does seem, will cause its own end if we choose to turn a blind eye when we should choose to defend. Systemic racism flourished and continues to thrive because those in power allow it to stay alive.
Hey, snap, snap. Yes, that's beautiful. This is Neutral Voices, and we will see you next time.